Hey everyone, welcome back to Play the Game HQ. I'm Allison, this is Daniel, and today we are going to give you our perspective on our gameplay experience of role player adventures.
Oh, the box is over here.
Oh, there it is.
Here's the box. It's big.
It's a big box.
It's a big old...
Like, oof.
It's a big old box.
Big old box.
It's empty, which is why I'm able to lift it with so much ease.
Yeah, it is pretty heavy.
It is very heavy.
Yeah, it is.
But it's a big old box, and it's full of role-playing goodness.
Many hours of fun. Now, we played this with our family of 4. Our boys are 9 and 13.
Yep.
And we have had a blast. It's been sitting on our table, being played through sessions the last 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, I think we played through all 10. It's a...
We played through all, well, except for the one.
We didn't play the side quest.
That one.
But it's 10 campaigns with a finale campaign. You've got all of your tome of encounters. You've got a rule book that is way smaller and lighter than it seems like it should be for a game this size. But we played through all 10 quests, and the finale quest, we had a pizza party last night with ice cream, and played through the finale.
Or ice cream.
No, we had pizza, then we played, then we had ice cream to celebrate or mourn. We're not going to say minimal spoilers in this. We won.
It was really, really fun.
Yes. Now, this is not a kid's game, so a lot of what we're going to talk about here is some parent notes and our experience playing it as a family, but it is not meant for kids. It's not bad for kids, but there are a few things that you should be aware of if you're going to go through it with your kids, with your younger kids, that we'll talk about those. But now this is an RPG that is fully set in the Thunderworks world, in the world. If you've played Lockup, Cartographers, Role Player, any of those, you're going to recognize a lot of things in it. But as the name would imply, Role Player Adventures, and if you have ever played Role Player, instead of being based around a D20 or a handful of dice, it's based around a bag full of D6s.
It's quite the handful of
dice. It is all about dice, and that is what you're going to use. The dice are your mechanic for... Oh.
One more.
The dice are your mechanic for completing skill checks and combat and things like that, is rolling and manipulating and choosing the right colored dice to use. It's all built around those D6s, and everything you're doing to get stronger in the game is increasing your ability to get certain dice and use certain dice so you can complete harder and harder and more difficult skill checks, going from a level 1 to a level 4. Like level 1, you need to match 3 dice. Level 4, you need to match
8?
9.
So speaking of like the world, I think we've played almost every Thunderworks game.
Role Player is Jared's favorite game.
Role Player,
and Cartographers is one of our favorite games.
Oh my gosh. And then you've got Lockup, and then now they just did a Kickstarter for Dawn of Ulos. And so we are familiar with the world from those games, little bits and pieces. So you've got in Cartographers, you've got the different bad guys that you run into, the villain, or they're not villains, they're like monsters. And
like you have the Nebulous expanse where you're in the map with that comes into play here.
It does. And then so we were setting up the different maps and things like that. And so we were in one of the swamplands, and we came across the Frogkins. The Frogkins. I was like, what's their names?
Yeah.
The Frogkins. And I was like, oh, I know them.
Yes.
And then like the Insectoids. And then Jared was setting up a map, but not spoilers, but we had to go to jail.
Well, you go to jail, but you may or may not have done the thing that sent you to jail.
And so Jared was setting up that mission or that map for that campaign, that map. And he came and he was like, we're in Lockup.
Yeah.
Like, I know this place, and it's the board of Lockup, basically. And so it was just really cool to be able to go through this and have that familiarness, but it wasn't forced at all. It wasn't like you remember in that other game?
Right.
It was just like so this is the
world
Frogkins.
building with very little exposition. Like some world building you get into where it's like, hey, here's these characters, and let me give you a bunch of backstory on the characters so you know that I thought about it.
Right.
This is not that. This is it is expanding on a world that has been very well established through all of their other games, but you are going to, it feels familiar. And if you're not familiar with it, then they're just introducing, if this is your first introduction to Thunderworks and to the role player world, you're going to be introduced to a lot of characters and a lot of species and races of things that you don't know that are just cool people you're going to interact with. But if you are familiar with that world and you have played those other games, you're going to recognize a lot of characters and a lot of those, like she said, the Frogkins and the Insectoids. And things that you have run into in other games that are just, it is a very, to me it felt, and where we've been watching through Rings of Power and things like that, so it had a very Tolkien-esque feel where it's like, hey, here's this thing that happened, and it's kind of a slight reference to something that happened somewhere else, and not a shove it down your throat reference, but just an implication that there is a larger world here that you may be able to explore elsewhere. And it was really cool because it was like,
really neat.
Yeah, it was like, here's this thing, and this kind of references something else that happened, and just knowing that those exist, and like their new Kickstarter that's coming out, this takes place 2,000 or 3,000 years after the events of Cartographers, and now they have a new Kickstarter campaign for a new campaign that takes place in the time of Cartographers. So it's setting up some of the things that were referenced in this of like the history of the world. Now we're going to go through those in another campaign.
I'm excited about that.
It was just the world building of it was very well done and very clean and very smooth, and not world building for the sake of world building, but just it just is. Yeah, it's like it was
really
very
fun to make that connection as a family, because we have gone through all these games as a family, and so we all had those same connections, and it was like, ooh, you remember that? Oh, that's cool. Oh, I know that. And speaking of, the maps are all two-sided, so it was like
there's a different map for each campaign.
And what was really cool is you're going through it. You've got these places that you can go, but then as you go through it, you pull out cards from the decks.
Yeah, you uncover
new places that you can go and experience. So the map looks how it is, which is fine, but then you don't know what you're actually going to discover. And so it had that type of feel to it, which I loved that aspect. And this is like a basic setup of my character. This is one character.
These are the dice. You can recruit familiars that are two colored dice that act as either color. There's things you can do to increase your abilities throughout the game. But a couple of parent notes, just for the parents out there that are watching, wondering if this is a good fit for you, because again, this is not designed for kids. It's not designed for families. But we played, again, Peyton's 9, Jared is 13. Peyton did mention some of the stuff was a little spooky at the bit. There's vampires, there's things like that. But as you go through the game, there is not gore. As from the level of gore, I think the worst thing we experienced, again, it is an RPG, so you are making choices and reading things in the book that you're directed to, but we have not read every word in that because we didn't make those decisions.
Yeah, we made different choices.
But the worst thing, as far as like explaining something gory, was we killed an orc and we were covered head to toe in purple orc blood.
Purple orc blood. I was expecting to be green. I was surprised it was purple.
But you do need to know, you are going to have to make decisions of whether or not to kill people. You are going to have to make those decisions to kill people, to let them live. And some of those people, and this is one of the things that Peyton mentioned as we were going through stuff, was we at one point were put in a position to need to fight people that were our friends at other points in the story or that we had helped. So
that we had just become familiar with in other parts of the worlds that we were in. And he was like, I don't really like having to make the choice to fight them and kill them.
Right.
So
and you are definitively killing them.
That's what you are doing.
You're not knocking them out. There are places where you are actually killing people.
And it does say that their bodies were on the floor.
And sometimes disposing of bodies and having to choose to do that.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't go into, again, there's not a lot of narrative gore in the events of that, but you are definitively killing people and at times having to choose what to do with the body. So,
and our kids are very imaginative, and so they can imagine what it looks like, and that's fun. Like we are very conservative when it comes to like
we don't do lots of vampire stuff.
We don't do that. So this was kind of pushing it, but our boys handled it fine. They've watched all the Marvel movies, most of the Marvel movies. And so it was pushing that because they have such an incredible imaginative, they just create things. So they could lay out what actually it looked like.
There are vampires, there is magic, there's sorcery, there's all of those things that you expect to find in a fantasy world.
Yeah.
And even like some of the artwork in the books is not.
Like here is Lord Rocca. How would you pronounce his name?
Rocta.
So he was kind of scary. He's a vampire, and then you've got the Ooze, which is the what is the green?
It's a gelatinous
cube, and that's got a dead body in there. You've got it's a megapede.
Yeah, and here's a vampire here that you can see.
That was the same one.
Yeah, so there's some spooky stuff.
But you're also, I mean, this is an enemy card. This is someone that we have known throughout the game. So there's other enemy cards of humans, of people that we interacted with as well that we didn't have to encounter because of choices we made.
Yeah. So there are those decisions that you're going to have to make to fight people, to potentially kill people, to definitively kill people. It's all text-based. The pictures are on the cards. There's not any app with video stuff. So again, the gore is minimal, but those decisions do have to be made. Now, mechanically for this game, something that was really appealing to us that we really enjoyed about this, not having done a lot of RPGs, is like, I know traditional RPGs, you're put in a position where it's like, hey, you need to get into the castle. There's a guard there, or there's a wall over here, or here's the scene that you're in. How do you want to try and get in the castle?
I don't know. Yeah. I'm going to find a rope and throw it up, and I guess that means I should have
exactly.
So you're in this I don't know.
You're having to decide, okay, I'll go climb the wall. That seems like it's going to be strength and dexterity, so let me check those out. But you have to decide what it's going to be.
That's not
with
like
this. Yeah, with this, it lays out a scene, and then it says, okay, so you're in that same position. You need to get into the castle. There's a wall that you can climb, or you can try and persuade the guard to let you through. You can do a skill check. You can fight the guard. You can sneak around and try and climb the wall. But it's all based on dice. So everything that you do in this game is based on rolling and manipulating dice. So you have, again, let's fight the insectoid here. So we're going to need to roll a red 3, a white 4, a red or a white 6, and any green dice can go there. So you have your dice pool that you're going to form. The number of dice that you can use is based on how you've built out your team. So you're going to pay for those dice. It costs 1 stamina per player. So for our team of 4 to get a black dice, we would have to put in 4 stamina from our dexterity row.
And that could have been 4 from each of us, which we did quite a few times. Or it could be like, oh, I don't really have enough. Or my fatigue is really high, you guys. Could
or just everyone put in 1.
Right. Or it's like, okay, how about I put in 3 because I have a lot of that, and someone else put in 1, and then someone else take over another dice.
It just has to be 1 stamina per player, however you get to that. Right. And then if you only decide to purchase or to get 1 specific dice and your dice pool level is 3, you just draw 2 randomly out of the bag. You roll those, and then you use cards to manipulate them. So there's cards that let you flip over dice, that let you add dice. Because obviously, if your dice limit is 5 and you need 10, you're going to have to get them somehow. Or actually, this dice limit is just. Skill checks are different. But in combat, you need 4 dice. You have a dice limit of 3. You can get those extra dice through your cards. And the cards you get during the game, you can buy them. Sometimes you are awarded them for things you do. But they're just going to let you manipulate the dice in a lot of different ways, change the colors, change the numbers, flip them, re-roll them, do all kinds of things. But again, the mechanic of this game and everything that you need to do in it is rolling dice, and the dice you need are specific and the numbers you need are specific. So you're not having to make those decisions of, let me make up a way to complete this. But at the same time, you are still going through a story. Even in D&D, even in those traditional role-playing games, the story is set. Like,
it is.
What you're trying to do and the mission you're on is set. Same with this. This just has a little more structure to mechanically how you're going to complete those things, which was really nice for us.
And it was also fun because, like, at the end of the game, we finished the game and we all were like, oh, I want to do it again and make different choices next time. Because I want to see what we're going to do at this point.
You have different factions that you're gaining favor with and that you're doing things with. So, like, we were, hey, let's go through and let's play it on Legendary. Let's go through on the harder, because there are some, towards the end of the game, we did all have really strong hands, and it got easier. It was still really challenging, but we were able to do everything relatively successfully. They have mitigated that with some updated rules. So it in the original printing, which is what we have, you can rest after a battle or after a skill check. You flip over this token, you spend XP to re-roll dice, and you roll that number of dice, and that brings stamina back. It gives you your health back.
And sometimes that's really good and bad. Yeah. It really depends on the roll. He would roll, so we'd roll. We had 18 that we really needed to roll. So he'd roll and roll great. I'd roll and have 2 snake eyes. And so I'm like, you guys, I can't do much next time because I did not rest very well.
Yeah. So legendary mode introduces hand limits because by the end of it, we all had 15 or 16 cards, which made it really, we still had to work really hard and collaborate and coordinate to be able to do stuff, but it made it doable to where you weren't losing many. Some of those updated rules, instead of resting by just flipping the token and spending XP, you put an XP on the rest track, and after you've rested 4 times, someone has to discard a card to reset that. So instead of just saying at the end of every battle, hey, let's rest and get our cards back and reset,
it's a cost.
There's a cost, which is good. And the hand limit, so we're excited to go through and replay it at the harder level, make some different decisions, because it was always like, if you have the card infected, go do this. Well, we weren't. We didn't let the vampire bite us.
We didn't.
We don't know what happens when you're infected, so let's go through it. Maybe we let the vampire bite us this time. I don't know. But there's just all those decisions, and there's so much more. Like, we are, having finished this game last night, are excited to restart it and go back through on a more difficult level and also just play a different story, because there's all those options in here. See what happens if we go against the king the whole time, or whatever, we like, just make those opposite choices. So
now, when you were talking about collaborating together, I will say it was as a mom watching my boys look at their cards and like think through and like, okay, all right, if you do that, then I can do this, and oh, remember you have that card, so if we do that, okay, then we can get it. And like, we had so many like, go high five, so many times. It was a
huge team effort.
It was, and it felt so good and bonding, and I loved it. This sat on our table for 2.5 weeks, set up, because it is a setup and take down. It would take a long time, so we had it set up. So it was a time commitment. It was an investment of our nights, because one campaign was what, an hour?
Earlier ones were an hour to an hour and a half. By the end, they were 2 to 3 hours each.
And so that's an investment, and I would do it again in a heartbeat.
We're ready to do it again.
I loved it. I had so much fun. I told Daniel last night, I was like, I'm sad that it's over. Like, I want to set it back up again and do it again. It was such a bonding thing with our family. We play a lot of games as a family. Having something like this is so fun to be able to experience over and over again. I had a blast.
I think it's a great introduction to the genre. Again, it takes away some of the intimidating decision making that RPGs have. It still gives you a story. You're having to make decisions that are going to impact how the story unfolds, but it's a little more structured and guided. And again, you're just rolling dice trying to get numbers and manipulate those, which is very stressful. But it's not, you're not having to think through and decide, okay, is the thing I'm about to do dexterity or strength, or is this persuasion or charisma, or like which one of those is really the right one to use. It lays all that out for you, which especially with younger players makes it streamlined. And the rule sets were so simple. It's a very well designed, very smooth playing, role playing adventure.
No pun intended.
That's why it's called that.
I will say, on some of the decisions, we were divided. Where me and one of the boys wanted to do something, and Daniel and one of the boys wanted to do something else, and it was like, we don't know what's the best thing. So we rolled the dice, and it was like, okay, 1 through 3, we do this. 4 through 6, we do this. And we had to do that a few times for decisions. We always went with what the roll was. But it was interesting to be able to... Like, we were like, I don't know what the best decision would be. What do you think? And having those conversations.
But I'm excited, one, to replay this. It was a lot of fun. I'm excited to go through at a heavier, more difficult level. I'm also really excited, once we do that, to pack this up and pass it on to another family and give them the same thing. Everything. I
don't know if I want to do that yet. I want to experience all the decisions.
Not yet, but eventually, like, there's a bunch of the player sheets. There's a whole pad of player sheets. There's a whole pad of the like team tracks and all of that. So it is one that when you're done, there's nothing destructive in it. So
I
when you're done,
write lightly and erase lightly, because you use the same box. And like, I stopped using the top over here because it got overused.
Once you're finished, there's nothing keeping you from passing this on. And just make sure you get it back before the next campaign releases.
Yes, this is true.
Yep. So this is Role Player Adventures from Thunderworks Games. We'll leave links below to where you can find this. Did we miss anything? We love this game. It was such a fantastic experience. Game. It was we asked Peyton, we asked the boys Sunday morning, or Saturday night, one of those, you're like, would you rather do this or would you rather do something like play Zelda? And they both really clear, like, oh, this. Absolutely.
Like it was like Jinx
we
instead
did
at the
not
same time.
drag them to the table. This was a family experience that everyone enjoyed. So fantastic game. Really enjoyed it. This was a review copy, but it was not a sponsored video. They sent it to us for review. And our review it was fantastic.
Yes, highly
really
recommend
excited to be able to allow more people to experience this. So, yep. We'll leave links where you can find it. Till next
see you
time.
later.
See you later.
Bye.